If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14. On December 24th, 2024, she will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 26th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Trump visited Biden at the White House, Trump's Bluetooth MAC address was obtained, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. It is predicted that on December 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. After Kamala Harris's predicted plane crash on December 24th and Joe Biden's predicted stroke on December 25th, it is predicted that Joe Biden will replace Kamala Harris with Michelle Obama as the vice president. Per the 20th Amendment, Congress will vote to make Michelle Obama the temporary president. It is predicted that Joe Biden will then step down and Michelle Obama will become the 47th president, and then she will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. It is then predicted that she will step down on January 12th and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on January 28th. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. Alternatively, it could also be that the symbolic beginning to the new pandemic will be on April 1st, 2025, and that on April 20th, 2025, martial law will be declared because of the new outbreak. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens. The demons pretending to be aliens will claim to be here to help us with our nuclear weapons after Damascus, Syria is destroyed with a nuclear weapon the day before June 9th. And it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist, and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the East Coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the West Coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be at the end of 2026. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, and more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on in case you can't find me later. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis on December 24th, 2024. As we can see here, this email was composed on November 23rd. That Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash has been known since 2020. In this email, I will outline briefly some of the reasons for how December 24th, 2024 is known ahead of time. But God has been demonstrating hundreds of signs over the years regarding Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash. This won't even scratch the surface of it. Furthermore, there are 70 other videos that explain the trail of signs, because that's how it works. God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. Works on the principle of it's an interconnected web, and the full intended meaning of any of the prophetic signs cannot be properly understood without their connections and context with the other prophetic signs. And it is through this that God is able to tell these stories, like the ones that I'll touch upon in this video, and thereby communicate extremely essential knowledge and information that everyone needs to know. I won't be telling much of the stories in this video. This video is like an overview video, if you will. What you need to do when the prediction comes to pass is watch the other 70 videos that explained the different trails of signs that led to February 10th, which was a step in the trail of signs. I couldn't continue to update these videos. There was just too many of them. But if you do not watch these other videos, you will have missed entirely the point, the purpose of this video that is from God. This prediction, the purpose of this prediction that is from God. And believe me, I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. It is so that you learn the information that God told through these stories and these trails of signs that God has been demonstrating for years now in the other 70 videos that led to February 10th. Now, February 10th led on into the trail of signs. There were many of them since February 10th, even 2024, but it all ultimately leads to December 24th. Okay, the date, it is now clear that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, because for one thing, I know it's impossible that it's a step, because before it wasn't possible to know that. Before, it could be the end of the trail or just another step. But it is impossible that the trail continues on past December 24th, because after January 3rd, there will be no reason, it'll be irrelevant if Kamala Harris dies in a plane crash. It'll be irrelevant. And the whole purpose of this is, the whole reason why she will die in a plane crash is so that Barack Obama can become the president again. For that to happen, she needs to die, and so does President Trump, so that before January 3rd, so that the Congress can vote for Michelle Obama to become the president, and after which she will appoint Barack Obama as her vice president. The temporary president, which is what is said will happen in the 20th Amendment. Okay, so take my advice. Yes, the wise person will recognize that they need to watch every minute of every video on this channel, including all of the videos that predicted that Kamala Harris would die on February 10th, and also the videos that predict her death on May 19th, 2024, because there were more signs after February 10th that I just did not want to continue to update either. Those stories for May 19th also are amazing and must be watched. So this email is documenting the prediction that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis on December 24th, 2024. Her fiery plane crash will be in Busch Stadium in the area code 314. Now, if you're new to this channel, you might be asking, how in the world do I know this? Well, I'll tell you this. I am not a prophet. And I believe that one reason why God if you will, has revealed all of this big picture of signs to myself is that I do not believe there are any prophets, to be clear, right? So it makes sense to me anyway that God would choose someone who is a cessationist and does not believe that people receive words from the Lord that they must be given to the world, right? I do not believe that. And that's not how all of this is learned. I learned all of this through the big picture of signs, which Jesus commanded us to watch for. Yet, if you ask the average Christian today if they could name one prophetic sign, they wouldn't even understand the question. And they would even miss the most obvious one in the Bible, the Star of Bethlehem, that the wise men recognized and therefore the unwise didn't. Well, it's the same with the second coming. The wise that are watching, like the wise men were, will recognize the coming, and that's why Jesus said and commanded us repeatedly to watch. But like I said, the Christian today doesn't even know what that even means. But anyway, the reason why I know that she'll die in a plane crash into Busch Stadium is because of the prophetic big picture of signs. Okay, and anyway, the St. Louis and Busch Stadium are in the area code 314, and her fiery plane crash there will be symbolic of the burning bush in Exodus 3:14. It is predicted that Tim Walz, okay, no, it's not predicted that he will be on her plane. I thought that that might be necessary at one point. I take it back now. It's clear that it isn't. That said, though, Tim Walz is a prophetic sign. The name Walls hints at the walls of security of Jericho that collapsed in God's judgment. Anyway, that's why, incidentally, his motorcade crashed into the wall on their way to a campaign rally. Okay, back to the subject, though. Now, President Trump, December 12th was a step on the trail of signs. It's amazing beyond words. I explained it in other videos. He's now predicted to die on December 26th. All of the analysis for December 12th, though, was 100% correct. And what I mean by that is you need to watch all of the Trump videos that I cannot update that predict that Trump will die on December 12th. They are amazing beyond words, and it is a step in the trail of signs. What can I tell you? It's the day that he rang the opening bell, and he was named Person of the Year for the second time by Time Magazine. But I'm not going to get into it. I already explained it in other videos. Okay. So anyway, it's an important, very extremely important step in the trail of signs in itself. But it also confirms all of the analysis in the other stories God told in the videos that led to December 12th. Okay. It is predicted that Biden will have a stroke. I think it might be on December 25th based on the signs. Okay. Let's see. Michelle Obama is predicted to appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. Michelle Obama will step down. Barack Obama will become the 48th president. I think that day will be January 12th, 2025. And Obama will be inaugurated in a formal way on January 20th. To confirm his signs and connections, God pairs 9, 23, and 44 together. The basketball president, who was number 23 in high school, was inaugurated as the 44th president in 2009. December 24th, 2024 will be exactly 2 times 30 months, which is 2 plus 3 years. This hints at 23. After it was reported there were 9 earthquakes in California within a 24-hour period that coincided with Christmas Eve into Christmas morning. Okay, this is the latter half of Christmas Eve and the first half of Christmas morning in 2019. These 9 earthquakes. This was the headline of these news stories that reported this. 9 earthquakes in California in 24 hours, okay? So, and if you respond to that with, well, there's 9 earthquakes in California every day, that may be the case, little minute tremors or whatever. But what I'm saying is, I could pull up the picture for you, but I don't want to stop this video and go find the picture and post it. You can take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. But there were news stories, including a story on Drudge, front page, right? about 9 earthquakes in California in 24 hours. Okay, so obviously then they aren't these tiny tremors, they were significant earthquakes. Okay, so in other words, I didn't make it up. It's a story. It's a news story. It's a prophetic sign. Kamala Harris was the senator from California at the time. She is of Indian descent, and on Christmas morning, an Indian American died when an old growth tree fell on him in Muir Woods National Park in California. Okay, in the Bible, fallen trees are symbolic of God's judgment on a people, and this is an old growth tree. It's, I think, as old as the nation, and therefore it is symbolic of judgment on the nation, especially since it is in a national park. Okay, but it was in California, which aligns this with the 9 earthquakes in California at the same time as this death, right? Because it was in the morning. Like I just said, the earthquakes were on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. It was on the day of the 9 earthquakes in California, and the hiker in the national park on which the old growth tree fell was pronounced dead 23 minutes after the call was placed to 911. Okay, so that's a pairing of 9 and 23 because it was on the day of the 9 earthquakes. And we have this 23-minute gap between the 911, which obviously hints at the 9/11 judgment warning in 2001. And that's amazing. So this is amazing, okay? You know what's also amazing that I just realized? In the 911, we pair the 9 with the 23, but also 11 and 23. That's amazing because 11 and 23 is this frequent number that God uses. In fact, just yesterday, the Dow dropped 1,123 points because it was a major prophetic sign, because 1123 is the 188th prime number, and God uses this number frequently because it points to H188 in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, because this is the word that means woe, exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. So we have this extreme judgment warning sign from God, which is this fallen old growth tree in the national park on the Indian American in California, where the Indian American senator was from at the time. Anyway, we got the 11 and the 23 there, and the 9 and the 23, I believe. But anyway, on December 24th, 2019, was also exactly 69 weeks, which hints at the most central prophecy in the Bible, Daniel chapter 9, which involves a period of 69 weeks, followed by a 70th week of time that is symbolic of the period of the end and the Antichrist. So that's why 69 weeks in God's signs would be used for this purpose, to hint at this. And that's why these signs that pointed to Kamala Harris and her death, because of course the Indian American died, on December 24th, 2019 were exactly 69 weeks before Kamala Harris was at an electric bus manufacturer in High Point, North Carolina, to promote her and Biden's $2.3 trillion jobs and infrastructure package. This is an amazing sign. Let me explain it. So, in Luke 10:18, Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. The name Barack Obama in Hebrew means lightning from heaven. Barack means lightning. Bama means high place, which in the Bible is a metaphor for heaven. For example, it is said that Lucifer fell from the high place. And the high place is a euphemism in the Bible for the false religious worship that the Jews would conduct on tops of mountains. And O, in the language Jesus would have been speaking, Aramaic, is the word for from. And so Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. Either Jesus didn't know what he was saying when he said this, or he knew there would be a famous president named Barack Obama and said this anyway, knowing that it would confuse us, or he was revealing the identity of the Antichrist. Obviously, the latter option is the only one that makes any sense, and therefore Barack Obama is the Antichrist, right? The whole nonsense about the evangelical Christians playing the guessing game, I like to call it the guessing game of who is the identity of the Antichrist. It's a game they play. And I say it, I mock it because It's not the Bible. Bible prophecy is very clear, and their interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is egregious and in error because of their doctrine, which is why they say it is the Holy Spirit that is to be removed before the identity of the Antichrist can be known. But when Paul spoke cryptically about the Antichrist and his identity being a he and a what, the what being removed, I should say, being a he and a what, why would he call the Holy Spirit a he and a what? I mean, okay. But also, why would he speak cryptically? Why would he do that? Well, it's because he knew that people in possession of his letter would be in danger if he spoke plainly. The he and the what is Constantine removing or moving the capital of the Roman Empire to Constantinople, making way for the rise in power of the bishops of Rome, which became the popes. And that's not the only prophecy that makes it abundantly clear that the Pope is the Antichrist. I mean, there wouldn't have been a Reformation without this knowledge, furthermore. And Old Testament prophecy is more than clear, including Daniel chapter 9. It's absolutely plain as day. And I'm not going to get into it any more than that. But anyway, I really did get off track there I was talking about Jesus identifying the Antichrist. Okay? So anyway, if the world is about to find out who the Antichrist is now anyway, but it's a shame that there was this guessing game for all of these years when it was clear and obvious for those who with discernment that Barack Obama is the Antichrist. I should say the second of the two Antichrists who gets his power from the first one, Pope Francis. Now, so the High Point, North Carolina, and the electric bus manufacturer is Luke 10:18 symbolism. Because the electric bus is lightning, and High Point obviously is Bama, which is the word that means high place, High Point. Okay? And so, that's amazing. Now, Kamala Harris, the earthquakes, the 9 earthquakes, and the 23 minutes between the call to 911 and the hiker being, the Indian American in California being pronounced dead, is exactly 69 weeks before the 2.3 trillion jobs package, and that's because that hints at 23, which pairs the 9 earthquakes because of this connection. By the way, 6 divided by 9 is 0.666, which is the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Well, anyway, the day that Kamala Harris, the vice president, was in High Point, North Carolina at an electric bus manufacturer promoting 2.3 trillion, was exactly 9 years after the Vice President Biden, because she's the Vice President at this time, promoting the package for Biden. It was exactly 9 years after Biden, Vice President Biden, made an emergency landing in his Air Force 2 plane in California after it was struck by a bird. So this exact 9 years pairs with the 2.3 trillion and confirms the signs and connections. And that's how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9 and 23, as I'm saying. And I know this because I have been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for 7 years. And the reason for 9 and 23 is because, well, from the Bible, the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment, and 23 is the 9th prime number. But also, the Antichrist was inaugurated in 09, and he was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. And also, the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in Ezekiel chapter 9, and the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes, which a person has 23 pairs of. Okay, and so Kamala Harris's plane is predicted, and she's the senator from California, which is why Joe Biden's Air Force 2 plane, she'll crash in her Air Force 2 plane on her way to California. That's why Joe Biden's Air Force 2 plane made an emergency landing in California after being struck by a bird, because Kamala Harris's plane is predicted to be struck by a bird. Vice President Harris's Air Force 2 plane is predicted to be struck by a bird, and while she will be on her way to California. The engine of Harris's plane is predicted to explode before her plane explodes when it hits the ground. Harris promoted $2.3 trillion exactly 444 days before a massive explosion of a pipeline, an oil pipeline at Harris County in Texas, which is essentially Houston, on the same day that the Biden-Harris administration approved 144,000 things for the monkeypox on July 7th, 7/7, which since that 7 times 7 equals 49, she's the 49th vice president. And 144,000 is symbolic of those God's faithful who will be rescued from the extreme persecution from the Antichrist, which will involve the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing, these things, okay? The name Harris hints at Hamas, which is why, so there's a video anyway that's titled the Gaza explosion video. God was overwhelmingly pointing to this date, October 17th, 2023, 10 days after the invasion of Hamas. And it's amazing, okay? One of the 23 hospitals exploded by a rocket, and in Gaza, made of 2.3 million people, and killed 200 to 300 people. Okay, so that's a bunch of 23s, and we just talked about the number 23, which is why I just mentioned it. But anyway, that's an amazing video. Make sure you watch that video. It explains so many amazing prophetic things. The Gaza explosion video. Okay, now anyway, that was when it was first learned that Harris rhymes with Hamas, and that's for a reason. There was a prophetic Kamala Harris airplane sign on that same day of the Hamas sign on October 17th, 2023. Okay, now December 24th, 2024 will be 444 days after the beginning of the hostage crisis in Gaza. The Iran hostage crisis lasted for 444 days. So you have an amazing parallel there, right? Kamala Harris is predicted to die on December 24th, and it'll be 444 days after the beginning of the Hamas hostage crisis in Gaza. Okay, and Harris rhymes with Hamas. And the Iran hostage crisis in 1979 is also known as the 444-day Iran hostage crisis. Now, Operation Eagle Claw, the attempt to rescue the hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, was a failure and resulted in an aviation disaster that killed 4+4 and injured 4 U.S. military servicemen on April 24th, 1980. The Operation Eagle Claw aviation disaster that killed 4+4 people and injured 4 U.S. military servicemen occurred exactly 44 years and 4+4 months before Harris's predicted aviation disaster in her Air Force Two plane, because again, this was a military Air Force operation disaster, which was predicted to be on December 24th, 2024. And obviously all of this hints at the 44th president, who will become the president again as a result of Kamala Harris's predicted plane crash, which will be 44 years and 4+4 months exactly after 4+4 and 4 were injured in Operation Eagle Claw. That was a result of the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, and Harris is predicted to die 444 days after the beginning of the Hamas hostage crisis. It's actually even more than that, because the 444-day Iran hostage crisis was the thing that the Carter presidency is most remembered for. And Carter pressured Israel to give back land in Gaza, to Egypt. So Carter is all about Gaza. That's why Carter is known for having lived his entire life, except when he was in the governor's mansion in the White House, in Plains, Georgia. Georgia hints at Gaza and Plains because King David subdued the tribes of the Plains of Gaza in the Bible. And that's why the Camp David Accord, which pressured Israel to give back land in Gaza. Anyway, that's another subject. I'm getting off a little bit into the Carter subject, and there's tons of Carter videos. It's so important. Carter's predicted death is to be on January 28th, 2025. Make sure you watch the Carter videos. Harrison Ford is known for his acting career in roles of a pilot, and also his aviation hobby and aviation mishaps. Harrison's aviation mishaps hint at Harris's predicted aviation mishap. Okay, so let me just drill into this a bit. Harrison Ford is known for this coincidence regarding him in all of these roles of him as a pilot. For example, he was obviously the pilot of the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars, but in the two of the Indiana Jones movies, he pilots a plane. The second one, Temple of Doom, at the beginning of the movie, he crashes the plane into India, and Kamala Harris is of Indian descent, and she's predicted to die in a plane crash. Furthermore, Indiana Jones hints at Kamala Harris of Indian descent. Indiana Jones is played by Harrison Ford. Okay, not only that though, he's known for his aviation hobby. In fact, prior to his acting career, he was training to be a pilot, but he ran out of money for his studies. So he got into acting, and the rest is history. And then he didn't resume his passion for aviation until he was in his 50s. And since then, he has become a spokesperson for the aviation community. He narrated the documentary, the IMAX movie, Age of Airplanes. And, well, another, by the way, I didn't finish the roles of him as a pilot. He also piloted the flying car in Blade Runner, for example. But there was another movie he starred in, 7 Days, 6 Nights, in which he, or maybe the other way, 7 Nights, 6 Days, whatever, in which he actually flew the plane in the movie. It took a while for him to convince the studio to let him do it because of insurance reasons, but he is actually the person flying the plane in the movie, and the plot of the movie is about a plane crash, and the name of his character in the movie is Harris. Anyway, he is also known for his aviation mishaps. For example, he crashed his helicopter in 1999. He crashed his vintage World War II plane onto a golf course in 2015. And I'm going to get at one of the other instances of the aviation mishaps that he had, but all of this is pointing to Harrison Ford's aviation mishaps point to Kamala Harris's predicted aviation mishap. I should say Kamala Harris, as in Harrison Ford. Okay, on April 24th, 2020, Ford landed his plane onto a taxiway at an airport located next to the LAX airport in Los Angeles, California. Okay, you don't land your plane on the taxiway. Kamala Harris was the senator from California at the time. And her predicted aviation mishap is predicted to occur on her way to LAX airport in California. After Harris's predicted aviation mishap, it is predicted that she will be replaced by the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. The FAA's investigation cleared Harrison on September 24th, 2020, exactly 2 + 3 months after the mishap. September 24th, 2020 is exactly 51 months before Harris's predicted aviation mishap. After Harris's predicted death, Obama is predicted to be appointed as the 51st vice president. Harrison Ford's aviation mishap on April 24th, 2020 is exactly 4 years and 8 months before Harris's predicted aviation mishap on December 24th, 2024. 4 years and 8 months hints at the prediction that Obama will become the 48th president after Harris's aviation mishap. Harrison Ford's aviation mishap on April 24th, 2020 was exactly 480 months after the aviation mishap in Operation Eagle Claw, which also hints at the predicted return of the 44th president as the 48th president. 480 months is also exactly 40 years, and 4 plus 4 U.S. military servicemen were killed and 4 were injured in the aviation mishap in Iran during the Operation Eagle Claw. Okay, so this was the operation to rescue the hostages in Iran during the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, which hints at the 44th president, which is why in the attempted rescue, 4 plus 4 were killed and 4 were injured. But it connects with exactly 480 months to the Harrison Ford mishap, which in turn connects with 4 years and 8 months to Kamala Harris's predicted aviation mishap, which will lead to the return of the 44th president as the 51st vice president, which is why the FAA cleared Harrison Ford exactly 51 months before Kamala Harris's predicted aviation mishap. Also, by the way, the April 24th, 2020 aviation mishap of Harrison Ford's is exactly 56 months before Kamala Harris's predicted plane crash. And 56 is 7 plus 7 times 7. It's, in other words, a parallel or symbolic of the 3 sets of 7 that the Israelites enacted before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment in the book of Joshua. They marched around the walls of security once per day for 7 days, and then on the 7th day, they marched around 7 times while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. It was a 7 plus a 7 times 7, which is incidentally how the Omer count works from Passover to Pentecost. The 7 days, symbolic 7 days anyway, to the first Feast of First Fruits, which is followed by 7 times 7 days to Pentecost. Well, anyway, the reason why the 56 months in this 3 sets of 7 symbolism is relevant is because the other prior aviation mishap in 2017 was when Harrison Ford flew 20 feet above a commercial plane on the runway that had 110 passengers. And Joshua, who led the Israelites in their symbolic 3 sets of 7, died at the age of 110. So when Kamala Harris, of course, dies, it will be part of this symbolic collapse of America's walls of security, which will lead to the Antichrist. Barack Obama delivered his first State of the Union speech on February 24th, 2009. You're seeing a theme here if you've watched a couple of these other videos explaining these connections in this email of the 24th of the month. Again, Kamala Harris is predicted to die on the 24th of the month of December 2024. And Barack Obama delivered his first State of the Union speech on February 24th, 2009. His speech is remembered for the standing ovation for Captain Sully, who had successfully ditched his U.S. Airways passenger plane into the Hudson River after it was hit by birds. By the way, they were Canadian geese, as far as I am aware or remember, and Canada is the 51st state that God is using in his signs for symbolism for the return of the Antichrist, first as the 51st vice president. Well, anyway, so this State of the Union speech, again, was remembered for Captain Sully, who was in the seats in the upper level. He had just prior to this ditched his U.S. Airways passenger plane into the Hudson River after it was hit by birds. Kamala Harris's plane crash is predicted to be due to a bird strike. Okay, now the day that Captain Sully ditched his plane after it was hit by birds into the Hudson River was exactly 40 days prior to Obama's speech, where Captain Sully was given a standing ovation. In the account of the flood in the Bible, the flood waters increased for 40 days after Noah and his family were rescued in a boat. The passengers and crew of Captain Sully's plane were rescued by boats from the floating plane. Okay, that's why the 40 days connection. The mishap, the disaster, the incident is known for how no one died. Captain Sully heroically rescued and saved all of the lives on board. And that's symbolic of how Noah and his family were rescued. I mean, if there were some deaths, we wouldn't have the same symbolism. I mean, we might, but it's more pronounced when all of the passengers were rescued. And that was part of the story, how Captain Sully saved everyone on board, right? Now, they were floating on the Hudson River, and they were rescued by boats. These ferries and boats came to pick up all of the people that were standing on the floating wing of the airplane in the Hudson River. And so anyway, again, the 40 days because of the flood symbolism here, because it's in the river and we have the flood symbolism with the rescue by boats, etc. Okay, so there were 155 passengers and crew. And again, the story is about how all of them were rescued safely. And I don't think anyone was even injured. I could be wrong about that. There were 155 passengers and crew, and Harris's plane is predicted to be struck by a bird and then crash near the I-55 highway in St. Louis, which incidentally, a major prophetic sign right there at the Gateway Arch where she is predicted to crash was the unprecedented, historic, disastrous flooding on the I-55 on July 26th, 2022, which was shortly before it was learned that her crash would be in St. Louis. Anyway, that's another story in other videos. So that's the reason why, though, the 155 passengers, this is because it hints at the I-55. Okay, this isn't the first instance in which God has used this 100 and something number to hint at an I-55 or an interstate highway number, right? Sully ditched the plane into the Hudson River adjacent to Lower Manhattan, where the planes crashed into the towers on 9/11. So this is important. This is key. This is the location in which the plane was ditched wasn't just in the Hudson River. It was right next to Lower Manhattan, which is where the planes crashed, the commercial passenger planes crashed into the towers on 9/11. Through the events of 9/11, God pointed to Isaiah 9:10 and thereby communicated that the state of the union is in poor standing with God. Right? Because this was a State of the Union speech that is about Captain Sully, and Captain Sully is about how he crashed his plane next to where the planes crashed on 9/11. Now, the 9/11 events were in themselves a prophetic sign that God used to point to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 10 and 11, which was the warning of judgment for ancient Israel. And there are 9 prophetic parallels between the warning in the passages and the events of 9/11 that Jonathan Cahn talks about, right? Okay, so this is why Obama's first State of the Union speech on February 24th, 2009 is exactly 90 plus 100 months, which hints at Isaiah chapter 9:10, before Harris's predicted plane crash, which will lead to the rise of the American Antichrist, Barack Obama. It will be what was warned of through the 9/11 events. God warned America to turn back to God, or else judgment and destruction. which will come through the Antichrist, the 44th president, which is incidentally why 44 people died on Flight 93 that crashed 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh, because it is from the bottomless pit that the fallen angels will emerge, which is incidentally also why Kamala Harris will fall from the sky on her way to Los Angeles, which is Spanish for angels. Anyway, that's the amazing thing here, is that this sign, the first State of the Union speech, which hinted at the poor standing and state of the union with God, is exactly 90, this first State of the Union speech hinted at or pointed to 9/11, and it is exactly 90 plus 100 months, which hints at 9/11, before Harris's predicted plane crash. This is amazing. This is merely scratching the surface of the reasons for how this prediction is known in advance. For more information, please visit Odyssey, spelled ODYSEE.com, or Rumble.com video channels titled Harris Crash Prediction, and also read the website TrumpPrediction.com. All right, now, I'm just going to add something here. This was written on November 24th. It occurred to me that the primary reason is for God pointing to November 27th, 2024 in regards to Harris's crash is that it is the day before Thanksgiving, and this Thanksgiving will be the 403rd anniversary of the first Thanksgiving at the spiritual founding of America. All right, now, God pointed to this through the 9/11 events because it was Flight 11 with a crew of 11 people that flew into the Twin Towers that looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state to join the Union. In New York City, a name made of 11 letters, because Jesus coined the phrase the 11th hour, which in ancient Israel referred to the last hour of daylight before darkness. And in English is an idiom that means last chance. Time is running out, as in last chance for America to repent and turn back to God. But this Flight 11, with its crew of 11 that flew into the Twin Towers and looked like a giant 11 in the 11th state, it departed from Governor's Island in Boston, in Massachusetts, Logan Airport, which is on Governor's Island, which was where the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony lived. And he, John Winthrop, led the 11-ship flotilla that arrived in the Charles River in Massachusetts Bay in 1630. And this followed up the Pilgrims that arrived on the Mayflower, and there were 101 passengers on the Mayflower, which also hints at 11. The Titanic, by the way, that also crossed the Atlantic, was a prophetic sign that pointed to the Mayflower, and that's why on the propeller in the newly released in 2023 images is the giant serial number 101. The Pilgrims in the Mayflower took 66 days to cross the Atlantic. It took way longer than they thought it would because of the storm that God used to push them far north of their destination so that they could be hooked in with Cape Cod, which is physically resembling a fishhook. And 66 days, 66 is the 11th triangular number. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 11th row is 66. Another 11. The reason for these 11s is because if God were to use a number to symbolize a theme of reflection, contrast, it would be 1 and 1. It wouldn't be 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. It'd just be the simple 1 and 1. It's the line and a line, right? 1 and 1. It's the reason for the number 11. The reason why this theme of reflection and contrast is because of John Winthrop's prophetic City on a Hill speech that he delivered before the Pilgrims departed the 11-ship flotilla, which was derived from Deuteronomy chapter 28, which was the speech, if you will, that Moses gave from God to the Israelites before they crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land. the Pilgrims saw their crossing of the Atlantic and their escape from religious persecution from the King of England as analogous to the Israelites' escape from the King of Egypt and their crossing the Jordan River into the Promised Land. The New World was the Pilgrims' Promised Land. And so that's why the speech was derived from Deuteronomy chapter 28, which is this extremely important chapter regarding God's promises of blessings and curses for the Israelites based on whether they obeyed or disobeyed his commandments. So that's why God pointed to all of this through Flight 11 with its crew of 11 that flew into the Twin Towers. It looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state. It points to John Winthrop's 11-ship flotilla and the speech. Now, the reason for bringing all this up here is because God was pointing to November 27th ahead of time, and it was a step in the trail of signs. In fact, the sign on the day was a 9/11 sign. It involved the 9/11 mayor, which I explained in another video. The 9/11 mayor video, which is an extremely important video. All right? And and that hints at the 403rd anniversary of the Pilgrims, because it's Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is obviously originating from the Pilgrims. So it's the 403rd anniversary of the Pilgrims landing in the Mayflower. And then they had a Thanksgiving the following year, mind you, but still, it's still symbolic of all of this, right? And the October 27th date is the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Harris's birth. Simon and Garfunkel released their first album Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. The day before Thanksgiving this year, which was November 27th, is a Wednesday. Well, every day before Thanksgiving is a Wednesday, actually. And Wednesday is the fourth day of the week. The fourth day of the week at 3 a.m. hints at 403 years since the first Thanksgiving. Anyway, I think that was an interesting connection there. By the way, the signs on November 27th revealed adding 9 + 9 + 9 days to the 9/11 mayor sign in the 11th state. God pairs 9 and 11 to point to 9/11. A few years ago, it was recognized that God is pointing to 400 years since the Pilgrims as a parallel with the Israelites' 400 years of affliction in the Bible. Okay, so anyway, that's the big thing here. 400 years the Israelites were persecuted, afflicted, and then they escaped the persecution of the king of Egypt, which is why 400 years after the Pilgrims escaped the persecution from the king of England, America will be persecuted by the Antichrist king, the American Pharaoh, Barack Obama, which is, by the way, the reason for the prophetic American Pharaoh Kentucky Derby Triple Crown winning horse, but that's another story. This year, Thanksgiving is on the date 11/28. Recall last year, it was believed that 11/28 symbolized John Winthrop's 11-ship flotilla and his sermon derived from Deuteronomy chapter 28. 11/28 in 2023 ended up being the date of Rosalind Carter's prophetic funeral. Rosalind Carter is equal to 990 in Hebrew gematria. And the story was Carter's attendance at the age of 99. 990 is the 44th triangular number, which hints at the 44th president. The date 11/28 for Thanksgiving this year confirms that this year's 404th anniversary of the first Thanksgiving. It's 404 years since the Pilgrims arrived. Okay, but in the Mayflower Pilgrims are symbolic of Thanksgiving, though. So it's the 404th anniversary of the Pilgrims' arrival, And this hints at the 44th president, Antichrist King. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.